excited. I've been coming to DemoCamp for like 4 or 5 years, so it's really neat to be in front of all you guys. And what I wanted to talk about is a little bit about the concept of what exactly is a lean startup. I wanted to talk about customer development and what we mean by customer development. A little bit on product market fit. But the meat of my talk is going to be around marketing and how does a lean startup do marketing? What are the different phases of marketing for a lean startup? There's a little bit on my background. So my background is a little bit of big company, a little bit of small company. Most of the big companies I've gone in there through acquisitions, because pretty much every small company I work at gets acquired. So I worked at IBM in New York for 4 or 5 years in head office. I ran worldwide marketing for this thing called InfoSphere. I ran that from the ground up until it was a couple $100 million. We made a bunch of acquisitions there. One really big one, it was $1.2 billion, and the rest we were essentially acquiring startups for cool tech companies. I ran worldwide marketing at Siebel. I had pipeline responsibility for about $1 billion worth of revenue. That was a global mandate. I was at Nortel, and you know, it's funny, people go to Nortel, yeah, that sucks. But I worked for the chief marketing officer. I had a dotted line of chief technology officer, and I swear to God, I was the only person there that had a cool job. Like, I had the coolest job inside Nortel. I ran this incubation thing, which I've always been interested in how you could apply some ideas about startups inside a big company. And so I got a chance to do that. It didn't last long because the whole company was too screwed up, but I did that for a while. Startup-wise, and I just got the most recent ones here. There's more than the 3 that are on there, but most recently I ran marketing at InfoBray. We did an $8 million raise with Flybridge Ventures. That was Series B. Before that, I ran marketing at Datamere. We did a repositioning and sort of relaunch of the company. They got acquired by IBM, coincidentally, maybe not coincidentally, by the exact same group that I just started marketing for IBM. And then before that, I ran product marketing at Janus Systems. And, you know, it's pretty funny, like, for such a humongous exit, like, nobody knows this town with Janus Systems. We got acquired for $1.8 billion. I think everybody would know it. You know, I talk about Janus, and we're like, yeah, you work with Janus, whatever. It's the biggest acquisition of a software company in Canadian history ever. Probably wasn't ever. Anyway, so I did that. You know, the last time I was here, there was this guy here from California. I forget his name. What was his name? Yeah. And so he was, you know, when he started out, this is kind of like, you know, when you public speaking, this is a I'm not a complete idiot slide. So like, when he came up and did this, he showed this video of him on Oprah. And I was like, damn, I gotta go and do this, you know, these people are not gonna take me seriously, and all I've got is like, yes, and startups, whatever. And, you know, so I haven't been on Oprah, but, you know, I'm working on it, and, you know, I've done some stuff too. So, when we talk about lean startups, there's a bit of confusion about this. You know, I had lots of lean startup conversations out of the South by Southwest a couple weeks ago, and a lot of people think doing a lean startup is just about not spending any money, right? Just not raising any money, we're going to bootstrap, we're not going to spend any money, and therefore we're lean, right? It's not really about that. Eric Bryce, if you read his blog, he kind of coined the term lean startup. He describes it as being sort of 3-legged stool. So one pillar is I'm going to use free tools or open source tools, but I'm not going to have a lot of upfront costs for tooling and starting a company. The second pillar is agile development. You know, I think in this room, everybody knows a lot about open source tools and things like Amazon S3. I think a lot of people in this room understand agile development is kind of done to death. The third pillar of it, I think, is the piece that people really don't understand, which is this concept of customer development. Customer development is a concept that the guy that owns this guy, Steve Blank. Steve Blank wrote a book called 4 Steps to Epiphany. He's very successful, serial entrepreneur, done a lot of startups, and coincidentally, he's a marketing guy, so his background is marketing. And if you've never read this book, you should. It's a really difficult book to read, unfortunately. So he wrote it, he teaches a class in entrepreneurship at Stanford and Berkeley. And so a lot of people I know say, oh yeah, 4 Steps to Epiphany was great, you know, and then we get talking about it, they never actually made it past like the first chapter because it's so meaty, it's written like a textbook. But the concepts in there are really important and they're kind of simple. So the first thing he talks about is customer development is really about looking at the assumptions you've made when you come up with your product idea and testing those assumptions as early in the process as possible. And what you're really looking for is you're trying to validate that a minimal feature set works for a particular market. Some people describe this as making sure your product doesn't suck, and that's what it is, but that book really describes how to make sure your product doesn't suck. I'm not going to get into all the details about how it works, but one of the key things in there is about testing your assumptions. Now, a lot of the startups that I talk to and work with, they very much have their product hats on, right? But assumptions are not just about the product, right? There's a lot of assumptions. So when you think about product assumptions, there's things like, IP, I think I've got something really unique. I don't know if it's unique or not. I should go out and figure that out. Things like TCO, how do I actually measure the total cost of ownership of this solution? What do I have to buy in addition to my stuff to make this thing work? Are there dependencies on it? It works on the iPhone, it doesn't work on BlackBerry, for example. Those are product-related things. I think we're fairly good at thinking through the assumptions. But then there's all this other stuff, right? So there's a bunch of assumptions about customers. We make big assumptions about the problem that it is that we're solving, and who has the problem, and how do you actually define the problem. There's things like ROI. How does the customer determine they're getting their money's worth for your solution? You'll make assumptions about the buying process, about the customer's environment. You'll make assumptions about the buying group. I'll give you an example. There's a customer startup I was working with about a year ago, and they sold marketing tools for big car manufacturers like GM and Ford. And so it was marketing tools. So they made this assumption that the buying unit would be the chief marketing officer, because that's who buys marketing tools, right? Right? Wrong, right? Wrong, completely wrong. It turns out car manufacturers are all in deep trouble, and you know what makes all the buying decisions at GM right now? Purchasing makes all the buying decisions. So that changes a lot about how you pitch that product, how you price that product, how you identify that product. There's a lot of assumptions related to customers. There's things like sales channels and pricing. I worked at a startup really early in my career where, I came on board after the product was already released, and we had made some big assumptions about what sort of margin we could give our channel partners. And it turned out that for this particular thing that we were selling, this was ages ago, you guys remember about programmers and paradise, but it used to be if you sold tools to programmers, this was your major channel to sell things through. And it turned out that we had to give programmers in paradise a 65% margin or they wouldn't list our product. It was a major assumption, and the whole business plan for the product didn't work once we factored that in. There's things like demand creation. How am I actually going to create demand for this product? How am I going to attract people to my website? You'll make assumptions about that. You'll make assumptions about whether or not you're entering a new or an existing market. And they're really different, right? Existing markets, you have fierce competition, but if you can figure it out, the revenue kind of goes like this. New markets, well, you don't have so much competition.